The radio signals from Earth traveled through space for decades before someone finally heard them. The Xanthir Collective picked up the transmissions in the year 2187. They were a group of 12 different alien species who worked together to expand their territory across the galaxy. For 3 months, they watched and listened to everything coming from the small blue planet. The Xanthir leaders studied the humans carefully. They saw a world divided into hundreds of countries. They watched news broadcasts showing wars, protests, and conflicts. They heard music, watched movies, and read books that humans sent into space. After all this observation, the Xanthir came to a simple conclusion. Humans were weak, divided, and would surrender quickly. This made sense to the Xanthir. In their 3,000 years of expansion, they had conquered 47 different species. Almost all of them gave up after seeing the massive Xanthir fleet. Most alien species in the galaxy evolved from prey animals. They ran from danger. They avoided conflict. They valued survival over fighting. The Xanthir expected humans to be the same. Commander Vector was chosen to lead the first contact mission. He was a proud warrior with scales that shimmered green and gold. He had overseen the peaceful absorption of 6 species into the collective. This mission seemed like it would be his easiest yet. He brought 300 warships to Earth's orbit. Each ship was twice the size of anything humans had built. Their weapons could destroy cities in seconds. On a cold morning in March, the Xanthir fleet appeared in the sky above Earth. Every telescope, every satellite, and every radar system saw them at once. Panic spread across the planet. News networks interrupted their regular broadcasts. Governments held emergency meetings. Regular people looked up at the sky and saw the massive alien vessels blocking out the stars. Captain Jack Morrison was on duty at Sentinel-7, a defense station orbiting between Earth and the Moon. He was drinking his 3rd cup of coffee when the alarm started screaming. His tactical officer, Lieutenant Amy Richardson, pulled up the sensor data. Her hands were shaking as she counted the enemy ships. 300 confirmed contacts, sir, Amy said. Her voice was steady despite her fear. They're holding position in high orbit. Kyle Barnes, the station's chief engineer, joined them on the command deck. He was a big man with rough hands and a calm face. He looked at the screen showing the alien fleet and let out a low whistle. Well, that's not good. The communication came 30 minutes later. Commander Vector's face appeared on every screen across Earth. He looked almost human, except for the scales and the 3 eyes. He spoke in perfect English, translated by advanced computers. "People of Earth," Vector said. His voice was calm and certain. "I am Commander Vector of the Xanthir Collective. Your planet has been selected for integration into our alliance. You will surrender all weapons, disband your militaries, and accept collective governance. You have 12 hours to respond. Resistance will result in the destruction of your major population centers. This is not a negotiation. This is a fact." The transmission ended. Silence filled the command deck of Sentinel-7. Jack looked at his crew. Amy was pale. Kyle had his jaw clenched tight. Around them, other officers waited for orders. Jack thought about his family back on Earth. His sister lived in Chicago with her 2 kids. His parents had retired to a small town in Oregon. He thought about every person on the planet below. Then he thought about the alien commander who just threatened to kill them all if they didn't obey. "Lieutenant Richardson," Jack said quietly, "target the flagship, every weapon we have." Amy turned to look at him. "Sir, they gave us 12 hours. "I heard them," Jack replied. He walked to his command chair and sat down. "And I've decided we don't need 12 hours to give them our answer. Lock weapons." Kyle grinned. It was a hard, angry grin. "I can boost the railgun power by 30% if you give me 2 minutes. "You have 90 seconds, Jack told him. Around Earth, in orbital stations and military bases, other commanders were making the same decision. Nobody wanted to surrender. Nobody thought it was smart to give up their freedom without a fight. Humans had been fighting each other for thousands of years. They knew how to fight. They were good at it. Jack watched the countdown on his screen. When it reached 0, he gave the order. Fire everything! Sentinel-7 unleashed every weapon in its arsenal. Railgun rounds, moving at incredible speeds, slammed into the Xanther flagship. Missiles streaked across the dark space. Laser batteries painted the alien hull with burning light. Other defense stations joined in. The lunar bases fired their cannons. Ships from the Mars colonies burned hard toward Earth to join the battle. The Xanther were completely shocked. This had never happened before. Species were supposed to surrender or at least try to negotiate. They weren't supposed to attack immediately. Commander Vector ordered his fleet to return fire. The battle was brutal and fast. Human ships were smaller and weaker than the Xanther vessels. But humans fought like cornered animals. When a fighter ran out of ammunition, the pilot would aim for an enemy ship and ram it at full speed. When defense stations were boarded by Xanther troops, human Marines fought them hand-to-hand in the corridors. Colonel Ben Harris led a boarding team onto a damaged Xanther cruiser. His Marines moved through the alien ship deck by deck. When their rifles stopped working in the strange atmosphere, they used knives. When the knives broke, they used their hands. The Xanther soldiers couldn't understand this level of aggression. They retreated in confusion. In orbit above Australia, a young pilot named Lieutenant Scott Baker watched his wingman die. A Xanther plasma bolt cut the fighter in half. Scott screamed in rage and grief. He pushed his engines to maximum and flew straight at the enemy cruiser that killed his friend. His fighter smashed into their weapons array. The explosion destroyed both vessels. The battle lasted 6 hours. Humans lost hundreds of ships and thousands of soldiers. Entire defense stations were destroyed. But the Xanther lost 40 warships, 40 ships in a single day. It had never happened in their entire history of conquest. Commander Vector stared at his casualty reports in disbelief. His 3 eyes were wide with shock. Species were supposed to lose hope when they saw how powerful the collective was. These humans seemed to get angrier instead. They fought harder when they were losing. It made no sense. "Retreat," Vector ordered. His voice was shaking. "Pull back to the outer system. We need to reassess this situation." The Xanther fleet withdrew. Behind them, Earth counted its dead and prepared for the next attack. Jack Morrison sat in his damaged command chair aboard Sentinel-7. Half his crew was dead. The station was barely functioning. But they had survived. The Xanther fleet retreated to the edge of the solar system. Commander Vector sent urgent reports back to the Collective Council. He described the battle in detail. He explained how the humans attacked without hesitation. He told them about the ramming attacks, the boarding parties, and the sheer violence of the human response. The council members read his reports with growing concern. This was not how First Contact was supposed to go. They called for an emergency session. 12 species sent their representatives to the Great Chamber on the collective homeworld. They argued for 3 days about what to do next. Some wanted to send an even bigger fleet. Others suggested negotiating. A few thought they should just leave the humans alone and find easier targets. Finally, the council made a decision. They would study the humans more carefully before trying again. They assigned their best expert to the task. Scholar Prinax was the leading xenopsychologist in the collective. She had spent 200 years studying alien cultures. Her species had 4 arms and skin that changed color based on her emotions. Right now, her skin was showing nervous purple patterns as she accepted the assignment. "I need full access to all human transmissions," Prinax told the council. "Everything they have sent into space, all their radio, television, and internet data." The council agreed. They gave her a team of researchers and the best computers in the collective. Prinax started working immediately. She began with the entertainment that humans created. She thought fiction would show her how humans saw themselves. The first movie she watched was about a war between human nations. Prynax saw soldiers fighting in trenches, dying in mud, killing each other with primitive weapons. She was disturbed, but continued watching. The second movie showed a different war with bigger weapons. The third movie showed a war in space between humans fighting each other. Prynax realized something troubling. Humans made entertainment about war. They seemed to enjoy it. She dug deeper into their databases. She found thousands of movies about combat. She found millions of hours of footage showing humans hitting each other for sport. Boxing, wrestling, and mixed fighting were popular activities that humans watched for fun. Her skin turned dark blue with shock. She called her research team together. "They fight each other recreationally," she told them. "Even when there is no war, they practice combat. They pay money to watch other humans hurt each other." One of her assistants, a young scholar named Tekron, pulled up more data. "Scholar, you need to see this. They have entire industries built around simulated combat. Video games where children practice warfare. Training facilities where civilians learn to fight. Sports where the objective is to physically dominate an opponent." Prynax felt her 3 hearts beating faster. She moved on to human history. What she found made her skin turn almost black with horror. Humans had been fighting wars for their entire recorded history. They fought over land, resources, religion, and ideas. They invented weapons specifically designed to kill other humans. Swords, guns, bombs, and finally nuclear weapons that could destroy their entire world. She watched footage from the world wars. Millions of humans died. Cities were burned. Entire populations were wiped out. And then, after those terrible wars ended, humans kept fighting. Smaller wars, but constant. They never seemed to stop. Prynax compiled her findings into a report. She worked for 6 weeks straight, barely sleeping. When she finished, she called for an emergency council meeting. The representatives gathered in the great chamber. Prynax's skin was showing waves of red and orange, colors that meant urgent warning. "Honored Council," she began, "I have completed my analysis of human culture and history. My findings are disturbing. We have made a critical error in our assessment of this species." She activated the viewing screens. Images of human warfare filled the chamber. Battle after battle. Weapon after weapon. The council members shifted uncomfortably in their seats. "Humans are apex predators," Prynax continued. "They evolved by hunting other animals to extinction. Their eyes face forward for tracking prey. Their bodies are built for endurance hunting, chasing animals until they collapse from exhaustion. But more importantly, their psychology is fundamentally different from every species in the collective." She showed them graphs comparing human aggression levels to other species. The difference was enormous. "Most species in the galaxy evolved as prey animals," Prynax explained. "We run from danger. We form large groups for safety. We surrender when threatened because survival is more important than pride. Humans are different. They evolved as hunters and they never stopped hunting. When threatened, they attack. When cornered, they fight harder. When they lose members of their group, they seek revenge." A council member from the Tauran species raised a tentacle. "Surely their technology level indicates they can be reasoned with. They have achieved spaceflight. They must be rational." Prynax's skin flashed angry red. "They achieved spaceflight while simultaneously building weapons to destroy themselves. They created nuclear bombs before they left their planet. They brought weapons into space with them. Their first space stations had defensive capabilities. They assumed conflict would follow them to the stars." She pulled up more data. "Let me show you something specific. Humans have a concept called mutually assured destruction. When they developed nuclear weapons, they built enough to destroy their world many times over. Each nation pointed weapons at the others. The strategy was simple. If you kill us, we will kill you, even as we die. Does this sound like a species that values survival above all else?" The chamber fell silent. The council members looked at each other with worry. Finally, the head of the council spoke. He was an old Vryn with silver scales and wise eyes. "Scholar Prenax, what do you recommend?" Prenax took a deep breath. Her skin settled into a steady orange color. "I recommend we withdraw completely and never contact this species again. They are too dangerous. They will not surrender. They will not submit. If we continue this conflict, they will fight until either they are extinct or we are." The military commander of the collective stood up. He was a Kryn, a large species with thick armor plates and 4 legs. "Unacceptable. We have never retreated from a conquest. Our technology is superior. We simply need more ships." Other military leaders agreed. They argued that one battle did not prove anything. They said the humans got lucky. They insisted that a proper fleet with proper tactics would win easily. Prenax tried to warn them. She showed them footage of human sports, human entertainment, human history. She explained that humans practiced violence constantly, even in peacetime. She told them that humans had been fighting wars with each other for thousands of years. They were good at it because they never stopped doing it. The council voted. Despite Prenax's warnings, they decided to authorize a second invasion. This time, they would send 10 times as many ships. They would bring their best weapons and their new shield technology. They would show the humans that resistance was futile. Prenax left the chamber with her skin showing deep purple sadness. She knew what was going to happen. The collective was making a terrible mistake, but she was just a scholar. Nobody listened to scholars when the military leaders wanted war. Back on Earth, humans were preparing for the next attack. Lieutenant Commander Ryan Cooper worked in a secret facility beneath the Rocky Mountains. His team had recovered pieces of destroyed Xanthier ships. They were taking the alien technology apart to see how it worked. Ryan was a quiet man with sharp eyes and clever hands. He had been an engineer before joining the military. Now he spent his days figuring out alien secrets. He was particularly interested in the energy shields that some Xanthier ships used. Dr. Lisa Chen worked with him. She was a physicist who specialized in energy fields. Together, they tested the alien shield technology. They hit it with different weapons. They tried different frequencies and different power levels. After 3 months of testing, Lisa made a discovery. "Ryan, look at this. The shield uses a rotating frequency pattern to deflect incoming fire. But there's a gap. When it switches from one frequency to another, there's a tiny window where it's vulnerable." Ryan studied the data. His mind was already working on solutions. "How tiny?" "0.03 seconds, Lisa replied. "That's enough," Ryan said with a grim smile. "If we modify our railguns to fire in bursts with precise timing, we can hit that gap. The shield will be useless." They took their findings to Admiral Kate Sullivan at Pacific Command. Kate was a tall woman with gray hair and hard eyes. She had been in the military for 30 years. She listened to Ryan and Lisa's presentation without interrupting. When they finished, Kate nodded slowly. "How long to retrofit the fleet?" 6 months after the first attack, the Xanthier fleet returned. This time they brought 3,000 warships. They appeared in the sky above Earth, Luna, and Mars at the exact same moment. It was a coordinated strike meant to overwhelm human defenses. Commander Vector was dead. The collective council had executed him for his failure. The new commander was a Kryn warrior named Thackrell. He had thick armor plates covering his body and 6 eyes that saw in multiple spectrums. He was confident and aggressive. He believed the first attack failed because Vector was too cautious. Thackrell broadcast his message to Earth. His voice was deeper and harder than Vector's had been. "Humans, your resistance in our first encounter was noted. It changes nothing. We return with overwhelming force. Your choices are simple. Surrender now and live as part of the collective, or resist and die. You have 1 hour." On Sentinel-7, now fully repaired and upgraded, Captain Jack Morrison listened to the ultimatum. He had been promoted after the first battle. His station had new weapons, new shields, and a larger crew. Amy Richardson was still his tactical officer. Kyle Barnes still ran the engineering section. Jack didn't bother responding to the alien message. Instead, he opened a channel to all human forces. All ships, all stations, all defensive positions. This is Morrison. You know what to do. Make them pay for every inch. Make them regret ever finding us. Earth stands. Humanity fights. Now light them up. The battle began. But this time, the Xanthir had a surprise. Their ships activated energy shields that glowed blue in the darkness of space. The shields were supposed to make them invincible. The collective had spent billions of credits developing this technology. The shields lasted exactly 4 minutes. Ryan Cooper's modifications worked perfectly. Human railguns fired in precise bursts. The first shot hit the shield. The second shot came 0.03 seconds later, right when the shield frequency was switching. The third shot punched through and tore into the hull. Across the battlefield, Xanthir ships started exploding. Captain Eric Stone commanded the carrier Defiance. It was one of Earth's largest warships, built in the months after the first attack. Eric was a veteran pilot who had transitioned to command. He stood on his bridge watching the tactical display. "Launch all fighters," Eric ordered. "Formation Delta 7. Target their command ships first." Squadron leader Megan Torres led the first wave of fighters off the deck. She was a small woman with quick reflexes and nerves of steel. Her fighter wing consisted of 20 pilots, all veterans of the first battle. They knew the price of failure. Megan's fighter screamed through space toward a Xanthir cruiser. Her weapons computer locked on. She fired missiles that looked like standard explosives. The Xanthir point defense systems shot most of them down, but 3 got through and detonated against the hull. The explosions were small, barely scratched the armor. The Xanthir crew probably thought they had won. Then the real weapons hit. Hidden inside the dummy missile debris were tiny railgun rounds. They slammed into the exact spots the explosives had weakened. The cruiser's hull cracked open. Atmosphere vented into space. This was the new human strategy: deception, misdirection, tactics designed to make the enemy think they were winning right up until they lost. Humans had been tricking each other in warfare for thousands of years. Now they used those skills against aliens. On Mars, the situation was desperate. The Xanthir sent 300 ships to attack the colony. Commander Chris Palmer had only 30 ships to defend it. The math was not in his favor, but Chris was a creative fighter who understood that numbers didn't always win battles. "Pull back to the orbital ring," Chris ordered. "Use the stations as cover." The Mars orbital ring was a massive structure that circled the planet. It housed thousands of civilians and critical infrastructure. The Xanthir expected the humans to defend it carefully. Chris did the opposite. He deliberately damaged the ring's support structures. When the Xanthir fleet moved in close to attack the human ships, Chris gave the order: "Detach sections 7 through 12. Huge pieces of the orbital ring broke free. They were still moving at orbital velocity, thousands of tons of metal and machinery spinning through space. The Xanthir ships tried to avoid them, but there were too many pieces moving too fast. Collisions destroyed dozens of alien vessels. Chris felt sick watching the station break apart. Civilians died in those sections, but if he didn't stop the Xanthir fleet, everyone on Mars would die. War demanded terrible choices. Chris made them without hesitation because that was his job. The Xanthir tried to land ground troops on Mars. They thought taking the colony itself would force a surrender. Colonel Claire Davis was waiting for them. She commanded the mechanized infantry defending the main dome. Claire was tall and strong. She had grown up on Mars and knew every tunnel, every corridor, and every hiding spot in the colony. Her Marines had been training in low gravity for months. They moved like ghosts through the red dust. The Xanthir soldiers were tough and well-armed, but they were used to fighting in normal gravity. On Mars, they stumbled and fell. They couldn't judge distances correctly. Their weapons were too heavy for the weak gravity. The human Marines cut them down in the streets. Claire led her squad through the industrial section. They found a Xanthir unit trying to sabotage the water recycling plant. She didn't give them a chance to surrender. Her Marines opened fire from 3 different directions. The aliens never knew what hit them. The battle for Mars lasted 3 weeks. It was brutal and exhausting. The Xanthir kept sending more troops. The humans kept killing them. Every street was contested. Every building was a fortress. The red sand turned darker with blood. In Earth orbit, the fighting was just as fierce. Admiral Kate Sullivan commanded the defense from her flagship, the Washington. She watched the tactical displays showing hundreds of battles happening at once. Human ships were outnumbered 10-1, but they were winning. "Focus fire on their carriers," Kate ordered. "Kill their ability to deploy fighters." The human fleet concentrated their attacks on the Xanthir carrier groups. It was a risky strategy. It meant ignoring other enemy ships. But Kate understood that winning battles required accepting some losses to gain bigger advantages. A Xanthir battleship broke through the defensive line and headed straight for Earth. Jack Morrison saw it coming. Sentinel-7 was damaged and low on ammunition. The battleship was 3 times bigger and fully armed. Basic tactics said to retreat and let someone else handle it. Jack didn't believe in basic tactics. "Kyle, how much power can you give me?" "Everything's already maxed out, Captain," Kyle replied. Then he paused. "Unless you want me to dump the life support reserves into the engines." "Do it," Jack ordered. "Amy, plot a ramming course." Amy turned to look at him. "Sir, that will kill us." "Only if we actually hit them," Jack said with a grim smile. "Plot the course. Make them think we're crazy enough to do it." Sentinel-7 accelerated toward the Xanthir battleship. The aliens saw the station coming. They couldn't believe what they were seeing. A damaged defense station was charging directly at them. It had to be a bluff. It wasn't a bluff. Jack kept the station on course until the last possible second. The Xanthir captain panicked and turned his ship to avoid the collision. The turn exposed the battleship's weaker side armor. 3 human destroyers that had been waiting for exactly this moment opened fire. The battleship exploded in a ball of fire. Jack pulled Sentinel-7 away from the debris. His crew was cheering. They had just killed a battleship with a bluff and good timing. It was the kind of trick that only worked once, but once was enough. The battle raged for 3 weeks. Millions of humans died. Entire fleets were destroyed. Colonies were damaged. But the Xanthir suffered worse. They lost over half their invasion force. Ship after ship fell to human weapons. Their casualties mounted faster than their commanders could count. Thackrell watched his fleet dying and couldn't understand what was happening. His technology was better. His ships were stronger. His warriors were trained and experienced. But the humans kept finding ways to win. They used tactics he had never seen before. They made sacrifices he couldn't comprehend. They fought with a determination that seemed insane. On the 21st day of battle, Scholar Prinax sent him a message from the collective homeworld. "Commander, you must retreat. I warned the Council this would happen. Humans do not fight like other species. They will not stop. They will not surrender. Every day you stay, you lose more ships. Withdraw before it's too late." Thackrell wanted to ignore her. He wanted to prove the scholars wrong. He wanted victory. But he was also a realist. He had started with 3,000 ships. He had less than 1,400 left. The humans were still fighting at full intensity. If this continued, he would lose everything. "All ships," Thackrell ordered. His voice was bitter with defeat. "Retreat to the outer system. Prepare for jump to home space." The Xanthir fleet withdrew. They left behind thousands of dead soldiers and hundreds. Admiral Kate Sullivan stood in the command center beneath Geneva Station and looked at the star charts. Earth had been attacked twice. Millions were dead. The Xanthir would certainly come back again with an even bigger fleet. Every military advisor told her to prepare better defenses, build more stations, fortify the colonies. Kate had different plans. She was tired of waiting for the enemy to attack. It was time to take the war to them. "We have the navigation data from the ships we destroyed," she told the assembled commanders. "We know where their colonies are. We know their supply routes. We know which systems support their war effort. It's time to hit them where they live." Admiral Greg Patterson spoke up. He was an older officer who preferred defensive strategies. "We barely survived 2 attacks. We should focus on protecting Earth, not launching invasions into unknown space." Kate shook her head. "If we stay defensive, they'll keep coming until they overwhelm us. We need to hurt them so badly that they stop trying. We need to make them afraid." The debate lasted for hours. Finally, the Earth Council voted. Humanity would go on the offensive. Kate was authorized to assemble a strike force and take the war into Xanthir space. Captain Jack Morrison was offered command of the mission. He stood in Kate's office, looking at the plans for Earth's first deep space warship. The vessel was called Retribution. It was built from human and captured alien technology, faster than anything Earth had made before, armed with weapons designed specifically to kill Xanthir ships. "I want you to command it," Kate said. "Take the fight to them. Show them what happens when they threaten Earth." Jack accepted. He requested his old crew from Sentinel-7. Amy Richardson became his executive officer. Kyle Barnes ran the engineering department. Together, they assembled a crew of veterans who had survived both Xanthir attacks. The Retribution launched 6 months after the second battle. It led a fleet of 50 ships into deep space. They used the captured Xanthir navigation data to find their first target, a colony world called Praxis 7. The jump through slipstream space took 3 weeks. When they arrived, they found a peaceful Xanthir colony orbiting a yellow star. The planet had a population of 8 million. Orbital stations handled trade and mining. Defense platforms protected the approaches. Commander Nicole Grant was Jack's executive officer. She had transferred from the destroyer Phoenix after distinguishing herself in the second battle. She studied the sensor readings of Praxis 7 with calm efficiency. 20 defense platforms, Nicole reported. 5 patrol ships. No major military presence. This is a civilian colony. Jack nodded. He felt a moment of doubt. These were civilians. But then he remembered Earth burning under Xanthir weapons. He remembered the millions of humans who died. War was terrible. But someone had to make the hard choices. "Target the orbital infrastructure," Jack ordered. "Destroy their communications relay first, then take out the cargo transfer stations. Leave the habitats intact, but make sure they can't call for help or receive supplies." The attack was surgical and brutal. Human ships came out of slipstream right on top of the colony. The Xanthir defenders barely had time to react. Retribution's weapons tore through the communications relay in the first salvo. The cargo stations exploded one after another. The patrol ships tried to fight back. They died quickly. Human weapons and tactics had improved dramatically. Every ship in the strike force had seen combat before. They knew how to kill Xanthir vessels efficiently. Within 2 hours, Praxis 7 was isolated. No communications in or out. No way to import food or export goods. The colony would survive, but it would be cut off and struggling for months. Jack broadcast a message to the planet. "People of Praxis 7, your collective attacked Earth without provocation. You killed millions of civilians. This is what war looks like when you bring it to someone else's home. Consider yourselves lucky. We could have destroyed your habitats. We chose mercy. Your leaders chose war. Remember that." The strike force jumped back into slipstream before Xanthir reinforcements could arrive. They hit 3 more colonies over the next month. Each attack was the same. Destroy infrastructure, cripple the economy, leave the people alive but trapped and helpless. News of the attacks spread panic through the collective. For the first time in their history, Xanthir civilians were experiencing war. Their colonies were vulnerable. Their trade was disrupted. The safe, comfortable expansion they had enjoyed for centuries was over. Scholar Prin Axe watched the reports from her office on the collective homeworld. Her skin showed deep purple sadness mixed with orange warning. She had tried to tell the council this would happen. Humans didn't just defend, they attacked. They were persistence hunters who chased their prey until it couldn't run anymore. She requested another meeting with the council. The representatives gathered, but this time they looked worried. 3 member species had already withdrawn from the collective. They didn't want to fight humans anymore. Honored Council, Prin Axe began. The humans are now conducting offensive operations in our space. They are destroying our economic infrastructure without killing civilians. This is intentional. They are showing us they could kill our people but choose not to. It is both a warning and a message. What message? Demanded a military commander. That they will keep escalating until we stop, Prin Axe replied. Every attack we make on Earth, they respond with 10 attacks on our colonies. We cannot win a war of attrition against a species that evolved by outlasting their prey. On Earth, Dr. Lisa Chen was working on the next breakthrough. She had been studying the Xanthir slipstream drives. The alien technology was good, but she thought she could make it better. She spent 4 months running simulations and testing modifications. Finally, she succeeded. The new drive used modified Xanthir technology with human improvements. It was 30% faster than the alien version. Ships could cross the same distances in days instead of weeks. General Dan Rodriguez immediately saw the strategic value. He was in charge of ship construction and fleet deployment. How fast can we retrofit the fleet? 4 months for existing ships, Lisa answered. New construction can have it built in from the start. Do it, Dan ordered, and start building more ships. I want 100 new warships with these drives within a year. The war turned decisively in humanity's favor. Human ships could strike deep into Xanthir space and retreat before defenders arrived. They hit supply depots, construction facilities, and research stations. They avoided civilian casualties but destroyed everything that supported the war effort. The Xanthir military tried to adapt. They spread their forces to protect more locations. But that just made them weaker everywhere. Human commanders exploited this ruthlessly. They would feint at one target, draw defenders away, then hit a different location entirely. Jack Morrison became famous throughout human space, the captain who took the war to the enemy. His crew followed him through battle after battle. Amy Richardson's tactical skills improved with every engagement. Kyle Barnes kept the Retribution running no matter how damaged it got. After 6 months of offensive operations, Jack led a raid on a major Xanthir shipyard. The facility orbited a gas giant in a heavily defended system. Intelligence said it produced 20% of the collective's warships. This is going to be rough, Nicole warned. She was studying the defenses. 50 platforms, 3 cruiser squadrons, heavy shields. They're expecting us now. Good, Jack said. Let them waste resources defending shipyards instead of attacking Earth. But we're still going in. We need to destroy that facility. The attack was the hardest battle yet. Human ships jumped into the system and immediately came under heavy fire. 2 destroyers were destroyed in the first minute. But the strike force pushed through. They had fought Xanthir ships so many times now that they knew every weakness. Retribution led the assault on the main construction bay. Jack's ship took heavy damage. Hull breaches vented atmosphere. The shield generators failed, but Kyle kept the engines running and Amy kept the weapons firing. They got close enough to launch their payload, kinetic missiles with depleted uranium cores. The missiles punched through the shipyard's shields and tore into the construction bay. Secondary explosions ripped through the facility. Dozens of half-built ships were destroyed. The human fleet retreated with heavy casualties. They lost 12 ships out of 50. But the shipyard was gone. The Xanthir had lost months of production and billions of credits. Across Xanthir space, the pattern repeated. Human forces struck military and economic targets. They didn't try to hold territory. They destroyed infrastructure and disappeared. It was asymmetric warfare on an interstellar scale. The collective economy began to crack under the strain. Trade routes were too dangerous. Colonies were isolated. Member species started questioning why they were part of an alliance that brought them only war and suffering. Scholar Prinax compiled reports showing the deteriorating situation. The collective had lost 60% of its military strength. Their economy was in ruins. 3 member species had already left. Others were considering it. The war was destroying them. She prepared one final presentation for the council. She would recommend peace negotiations. It was time to admit the truth. The Xanthir had picked a fight with the wrong species. Humans were not prey. They were hunters, and they were very, very good at it. 2 years after the war began, the Xanthir collective was broken. They had lost more than half their military. Their economy was shattered. 5 member species had withdrawn from the alliance. The remaining species were angry and demanding answers. How had a single primitive world brought their great collective to its knees? The council met in emergency session for the 7th time in 3 months. The chamber that once echoed with confident talk of expansion now filled with bitter arguments and accusations. Finally, the head of the council called for silence. "We have lost this war," he said. The words hurt to speak, but they were true. Scholar Prinax warned us. We did not listen. Now we must face the consequences. I move that we authorize peace negotiations with the humans. The vote was unanimous. Nobody wanted to continue fighting. The council gave Scholar Prinax full authority to negotiate on their behalf. She was the only one who truly understood humans. She was their best chance for peace. Prinax traveled to Earth aboard an unarmed diplomatic vessel. She felt fear as the small ship approached the blue planet. The humans could destroy her ship easily. They had every reason to hate the Xanthir, but she hoped they would be reasonable. Admiral Kate Sullivan met the alien diplomat at Geneva Station. The station had been rebuilt after being destroyed in the first attack. It now served as the headquarters for Earth's military command. Kate stood in the docking bay with a small honor guard as Prinax's shuttle arrived. The scholar emerged from the shuttle on 4 legs. Her skin was showing steady blue colors that meant peaceful intentions. She had 2 guards with her, but they were unarmed. Kate noted this and appreciated the gesture. "Admiral Sullivan," Prinax said in perfect English. "Thank you for agreeing to meet with me." "Scholar Prinax," Kate replied. "Welcome to Earth. Though I wish the circumstances were different." They met in a conference room overlooking the planet. Lieutenant Amy Richardson attended as Kate's aide. She sat quietly, taking notes and observing. Amy had been promoted twice during the war. She was no longer the nervous young officer who served on Sentinel-7. Combat had hardened her. Prinax spoke first. "Admiral, I come before you with an official request from the Collective Council. We seek peace. We acknowledge that we initiated this conflict based on false assumptions. We underestimated your species. We caused tremendous suffering, and we have paid a terrible price for our arrogance." Kate listened without expression. "You killed millions of my people. You attacked our homes. You threatened to destroy our cities if we didn't surrender, and now you want peace because you're losing. Why should we agree?" Prinax's skin flashed orange with distress. "Because continuing the war serves no purpose. We cannot win. You have proven that conclusively. Further fighting will only result in more death on both sides. We are prepared to offer substantial concessions." "I'm listening," Kate said. Over the next 3 days, they negotiated the terms. Prinax was authorized to agree to almost anything. The collective was desperate. Kate drove a hard bargain, but she was also fair. She didn't want revenge. She wanted security. The final treaty included several key points. First, complete withdrawal of all Xanthir forces from human space. Second, technology sharing agreements that would give Earth access to collective scientific knowledge. Third, war reparations to be paid over 50 years. Fourth, and most importantly, the collective would disband its conquest programs permanently. Prynax agreed to all terms. She had no choice. But she was actually relieved. The terms were harsh but not vengeful. Humans could have demanded total surrender. They could have occupied Xanthier worlds. They didn't. They just wanted to be left alone and compensated for their losses. "Admiral Sullivan," Prynax said on the last day of negotiations, "may I ask you a personal question?" Kate nodded. "Go ahead. Why are you being so reasonable? You have won the war. You could demand anything. You could destroy our remaining fleet and take whatever you want. Why settle for reparations and withdrawal?" Kate leaned back in her chair. She thought about all the battles, all the people she had lost, and all the decisions she had made. "Because I understand the difference between defeating an enemy and creating eternal hatred. If we crush you completely, your people will hate us forever. They'll rebuild and come back for revenge in 100 years. But if we give you a chance to recover with dignity, maybe we can actually have peace." Prynax's skin showed deep purple respect. "That is wisdom. Most species in the galaxy do not think this way. Most species in the galaxy didn't evolve fighting each other for thousands of years," Kate replied. "We learned some hard lessons about war and peace. We know how to fight, but we also know how to stop fighting when it makes sense." The treaty was signed in a formal ceremony. Representatives from Earth, the lunar colonies, and Mars attended. The Xanthier Council sent messages of acknowledgement. Scholar Prynax signed the document with all four of her hands. Kate signed for humanity. After the ceremony, Prynax prepared to return to collective space. But first, she had one more task. She compiled a comprehensive report about humanity. It would be distributed to every species in known space. A warning, a lesson, a truth that needed to be told. She wrote about human evolution, how they climbed to the top of their food chain through persistence and violence, how they developed tools and weapons before developing agriculture, how they fought constant wars even as they built civilizations. She explained human psychology, their unwillingness to surrender, their loyalty to their group, their capacity for both mercy and brutality, their tendency to escalate conflicts until the enemy could no longer fight. Most importantly, she warned other species. Humans looked fragile. They seemed divided. They appeared primitive by some measures. But these were all deceptions. Humans were apex predators who never stopped being predators. They practiced combat for recreation. They studied warfare as art and science. They prepared for conflict even during peacetime. The report ended with simple advice. Do your homework. Study the species before you contact them, and never, ever mistake human kindness for weakness. 10 years passed. The war became history. Captain Jack Morrison retired from military service with full honors. He returned to Colorado and built a small house in the mountains. He spent his days hiking, reading, and trying to forget the battles. His old crew stayed in touch. Amy Richardson commanded the diplomatic escort fleet now. She protected Earth's ambassadors as they traveled to other worlds. The galaxy had learned about humanity. Most species approached with respect and caution. Kyle Barnes taught engineering at the Mars Technical Institute. He trained the next generation of shipbuilders and mechanics. His students learned about both human and alien technology. Earth was part of the galactic community now. The Xanthier kept their word. They paid their reparations on time. They shared their technology. They transformed their society from conquerors to equals. It was painful and difficult. Many Xanthier citizens struggled with the change, but they learned. Scholar Prynax visited Earth several times over the years. She became friends with Kate Sullivan. They met for dinner when Prynax was in town, talking about politics, philosophy, and the nature of war and peace. "Do you ever regret the war?" Prynax asked during one visit. Her skin was showing comfortable green colors. Kate thought about it carefully. "I regret the deaths. I regret the suffering, but I don't regret fighting. You threatened my people. We defended ourselves. We did what we had to do." "And now?" Prynax asked. "Now we build instead of destroy," Kate said. "We explore instead of conquer. We learn instead of fight. But we stay ready, just in case someone else makes the same mistake you did." Prynax's skin flashed orange acknowledgement. "Your species is remarkable, dangerous, yes, but also capable of great wisdom. I am glad we made peace." "So am I," Kate agreed. Across the galaxy, the story of humanity spread. It became a legend told on 1,000 worlds. The species that looked weak but fought like demons. The divided planet that unified against invasion. The primitives who defeated an empire. First contact with humanity became a careful, respectful process. Other species studied human culture extensively before sending transmissions. They approached with open hands and peaceful intentions. They learned that humans could be wonderful allies and terrible enemies. The choice was entirely up to how you treated them. Earth joined the galactic community not as conquerors, but as equals. Human ships explored new systems. Human scientists shared discoveries. Human artists created works that amazed alien audiences. Humanity contributed to the wider galaxy in countless ways. But everyone remembered the war. Earth maintained a strong military. Training never stopped. Weapons research continued, because humans understood a fundamental truth about the universe. Peace was wonderful, but peace only lasted when you were strong enough to defend it. Jack Morrison sat on his porch one evening watching the sun set over the mountains. He was an old man now. His hair was white. His body was tired, but his mind was sharp and his memories were clear. He thought about all the battles, all the friends who died, all the enemies he killed. War was terrible, but sometimes it was necessary. The Xanthir learned that lesson. The galaxy learned that lesson, and humanity proved they understood it better than anyone. The moral of the story was simple and eternal. If you want to fight someone, you better do your homework first. Learn who they are, understand what they're capable of, and most importantly, make sure you're ready for what happens when apex predators defend their home, because humanity doesn't play nice with those who threaten their families. And that's a lesson the galaxy would never forget. Back on the Retribution, Jack sat in his ready room and thought about the war. He had killed thousands of Xanthir. He had destroyed their ships, their stations, and their economic power. He felt no joy in it. War was ugly and brutal, but someone had to fight it. Someone had to make sure Earth stayed safe. Amy knocked on his door and entered. "Captain, we just received orders. We're being recalled to Earth. Command says there might be peace negotiations." Jack felt relief wash over him. Maybe this war could end without more death. Maybe the Xanthir had finally learned their lesson. He stood up and straightened his uniform. "Set course for home," he ordered. "Let's see if these aliens are finally ready to talk." The war wasn't over yet. But humanity had proven its point. They had taken the fight to the enemy. They had shown the Xanthir that attacking Earth came with a terrible price. Now it was time to see if the aliens were smart enough to accept peace. Of destroyed ships. The humans didn't chase them. They were too busy counting their own losses and beginning repairs. Kate Sullivan stood on the bridge of the Washington and watched the enemy flee. She felt no joy in the victory. Too many people had died. Too many ships were gone. But they had won. Earth still stood. The colonies still lived. That was enough. Jack Morrison sat in his command chair on Sentinel 7 and closed his eyes. He was exhausted beyond words. Amy was getting medical treatment for burns. Kyle was working to restore life support. Half the crew was dead or wounded, but they had survived. Across human space, the same scene played out. Tired soldiers, damaged ships, mourning families, but also pride, determination, and the certain knowledge that when the aliens came back again, humanity would be ready. Because humans didn't surrender. They didn't quit. They fought until the threat was gone. The Xanthir had come to conquer an easy target. They found apex predators defending their home. It was a lesson they would never forget. 6 months if we push hard, Ryan answered. You have 4 months, Kate told them, because they're coming back. And when they do, we're going to be ready. Across Earth and the colonies on Luna and Mars, humanity prepared for war. Factories ran day and night building new ships. Soldiers trained constantly. Scientists worked on new weapons. Engineers improved the defenses. Everyone knew the aliens would return. Everyone knew the next battle would be bigger. But nobody talked about surrender. Nobody suggested negotiating. The Xanthir had threatened Earth. They had killed thousands of humans. That could not stand. The Xanthir thought humans were divided and weak. They thought superior technology would win the day. They thought wrong. Humans were about to teach them a lesson about underestimating apex predators, and it was going to be a bloody education. They'll be back, Amy said quietly. She was bandaging a cut on her arm. I know, Jack replied. He looked at the planet below. And we'll be ready. Across Earth, the same conversation was happening in 1,000 different places. Humanity had been attacked. They had fought back, and they would keep fighting until the threat was gone. There would be no surrender. There would be no peace until the Xanthir left and never came back. The aliens had made a terrible mistake. They thought humans were like other species. They thought humans would choose survival over pride, safety over freedom. They were wrong. Humans were apex predators who had clawed their way to the top of their food chain. They had survived ice ages and plagues. They had fought each other for resources, land, and ideas. War was in their bones. The Xanthir should have done their homework better. But it was too late now. The war had started, and humanity was just getting warmed up.